The best thing we can do is pray for him.
Yeah.
The best thing we can do is not reward him with the very thing that the enemy's using to destroy him.
That's good.
You understand? Which is
Yes.
influence.
Yes.
So we reward him with what the enemy is actually using to destroy Kanye West. Kanye West needs to be in a loving community with other believers who are going to walk with him, not judge him, care for him, give him truth,
Yeah.
but really be with him. All right, welcome to the Church Dropout podcast. My name is Alan. I am the host. Church Dropout is a podcast. We talk about issues, topics, and teachings related to faith, life, and culture in ways that are sometimes funny, sometimes serious, but always insightful. Lisa is mimicking me now. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. If you have not already, please like, rate, and subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast at. And also, if you feel led to do so, you can support us in various ways, by super chats and different things of that sort. But also you could support us by just referring others to the channel. Many of you have expressed that you enjoy the content. Let's run them subs up, as they say, as they say on the YouTube streets.
Okay.
So today I want to talk about Kanye West. Okay. And he's back in the news, obviously, for some comments that he made. Referencing.
When is it never for comments that he's
True,
made?
absolutely true. And again, Christians are up in, a roar over the comments and to a certain degree, rightfully so, because of some of the things that he says, even though I believe Kanye is just talking. Sometimes he's just trolling. But, he's made some comments about, he's referenced himself as God and, he doesn't believe in prayer, that prayer works. Just expressing his frustrations with Christianity and, and maybe we'll talk about, some of those things at some point, but I don't want to talk about that in this video because I think there's a deeper issue, right? And I think that Christians, the church, is a part of why there's a deeper issue and why we need to have this discussion about Kanye and his salvation, right? And why, or is Kanye saved, right? Because that's the question that's now being asked, and now that Kanye is kind of in he's in the downfall of his Christian era. People are asking the question, is he saved? Is he a Christian? And, because he continues to do things that just show the opposite, I guess, of what what it would look like to bear fruit as a Christian, right? But you're going to say something? Oh, so my thing is that I believe Christians are in part to blame for Kanye's image, his Christian image, and why his downfall to some degree is so severe. Now, I don't think that Christians are responsible for, obviously, him as an individual. People make choices. He has professed something, and he is responsible for what he professed. However, Christians, I think, are responsible for how we responded to that profession. You understand what I'm saying? And I think Christians are, somewhat to blame, in sense of, this idea that Kanye was a Christian, is a Christian. We built him up into this image, Christianity, of being a Christian in the industry. And, we bought his album. We pushed his Sunday services, had our kids singing Chick-fil-A, and had the Christian kids going crazy.
Yeah.
And we pulled him in.
Right. Yeah.
Based upon his profession. But again, now he's moving in the opposite direction, and now Christians have to kind of clean that up. But I think, we're at fault. And the reason why I'm saying that is that I think there's a bigger problem to me with celebrity culture and Christians. And I think this is one of the things that kind of drives at what the problem that Christians have when it relates to celebrities. I think that there is a really unhealthy relationship and infatuation with celebrities that Christians have with celebrities. right? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when somebody professes to be a Christian out of popular culture that is a celebrity, we treat them different, right? We platform them, we treat them different. We're quicker to pull them in. We celebrate it like
and I feel like we've been doing that for years.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, even back in the day, probably even before I was born, you know what I mean? Just, certain, as soon as, they did one Christian album, everybody was like, oh my gosh, they're a Christian, we need to support them. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it's
right.
just us, all it takes, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. If somebody just say that they're a Christian and make a profession and we're all over it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that happens for a few reasons
or make one Christian movie. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, go ahead. You on one. Start.
Know, I got to get it out when it's there. Okay.
Yeah. But I think what you're hitting on is the problem is that I think the reason why Kanye feels so comfortable saying the things that he's saying is that we made him a voice for Christianity by pushing him, and supporting him without saying, hey, maybe you should sit back a little bit.
Right.
We pushed him and supported him and platformed him. And now he's saying these things that are not Christian and nobody can control that. Not that anybody could control Kanye
Anyways.
but the reality is that because we didn't treat him like a normal person, like think about this. This is where celebrities, even celebrities a celebrity can go into a church and be invited into the pulpit. Doesn't have to preach, but can be invited into the pulpit for something because they're a celebrity, where somebody could be serving in that church for 30 years and never, ever get that opportunity to speak from the front. Yeah. No matter how faithful they faithfully gave to the church, right? You know what I mean? Like we treat celebrities different. We give them a microphone because of their influence.
Yes.
And the reality is it's because we desire and cherish their influence, and we believe that they need to be treated differently.
Yeah.
So the Kanye that we're seeing as far as Christianity is concerned is a product of evangelicalism. It's a product of us allowing him to profess his faith and then platforming that profession in a way that has empowered him to make him believe he's an authority on things that he really doesn't have any clue about what he's talking about. Now, as Christians, we got to clean it up.
Right.
We got to go because we've endorsed it. Now we got to go back out there and say, hey, no, maybe he's not a Christian, when we should have just taken our time and allowed time to tell whether or not a person's profession is their faith. Now, I'm still not addressing whether or not Kanye is a Christian or not.
Right.
I have a video that I think I talked about that a little bit, event or conversion. You can go back and take a look at it if you want, but it just kind of dealt with, are we looking at the event, in terms of Kanye praying a prayer saying that he's a Christian? Is conversion an event? Does it happen just right there?
Right.
Or is belief something that is continued to be drawn upon over time? And I think that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing the fruit of his belief.
Right.
And anyway, so that's where I think Christians are, in part, I gotta get my phone here, in part responsible, for this image of Christianity that Kanye has portrayed, because we're the ones who spotlighted him.
Right.
And let me go back to something really quick, just touching on why I believe Christians have an infatuation with famous people, especially when they become Christian. I honestly believe that we think, and I've done a video on this as well, but I honestly believe that we think that God uses the most influential people, or that he needs the influence of people in order to change the world. When I look at scripture, I see the opposite. God uses ordinary, everyday people who are the opposite of those who influence to change the world. Right. And we think that if God wins Kanye, then God can win Kanye's crowd. You understand what I'm saying? And so we almost need Kanye in order to reach that industry. You understand what I'm saying? Or in order to reach people. And to me, that's the problem. That's why we want celebrities to become Christian, because they can then influence people that are under their inspiration, I guess. Excuse me. allergies.
Mm-hmm. I'll take care of you when it's over.
Yeah, thanks. And so, I just realized that, never mind. I'm not even going to go there. It's a Christian broadcast. Okay.
We married though. We married.
So, but yeah, I just think that Christians have this really unhealthy relationship, even in terms of how we believe God changes the world. You know what I mean? In terms of who does God choose to influence the culture?
Yeah.
And when we look at Scripture and we look at all of the leaders that God has chosen in Scripture, it hasn't been the most powerful. It hasn't been the most influential.
Yeah.
It hasn't been those with the greatest reach. It hasn't been those with the greatest talent. It's always been broken, ordinary individuals. And this is something that I think I brought up before, but I'll say it again, but even when you look at Moses, some people will say, well, Moses was taught in the house of Pharaoh. He was taught in the Egyptian way, so he was highly educated. And you know what's interesting about that is that he was highly educated, true. He was taught in Pharaoh's house, true. But then God sends him out into the wilderness after he kills an Egyptian. He sends him out and he's there for 30, 40 years. It's almost like he worked Egypt out of him to send him back in there because Moses was a different person when God called him. Moses was like, I can't do that.
Right.
I can't talk. So he went from a prideful man who was willing to kill for his people to be free to this man who was so broken that he was like, I can't go back to I can't even talk, God. Why would you use me? So it's almost like God broke him of his own power.
Yeah.
And broke him of his own, power and ability to rescue his people and said, no, now I can use you.
Yep.
Because now it's my power that's going to be on display, right? And so
you're dependent on me.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so I think this idea that God is going to use the celebrity to change the culture, I think is flawed. And I do believe that this is why Christians push this so much. And I think this is even why we have celebrity culture within the church as well. We tend to treat celebrity pastors different. We tend to treat anybody who has any sort of fame, we pedestal them in a way, and we believe that their influence and their reach is the most important thing. And the reality is that none of that means anything to God. Last thing I'll say just about that.
Yeah.
When Jesus was tempted and, the enemy said, hey, I'll give you the kingdoms of the world. I'll give you influence. I'll give you everything you need. And Jesus says, no. He denies power. He denies privilege. He denies resource. And he says, I will only do what God tells me to do. Right? And so, as Christians, I think we need to be careful. Platforming people, putting people in positions. We not only hurt them, but we hurt people who are listening and looking and saying, wait a minute, maybe I should believe X, Y, and Z. Now Kanye is saying all this crazy stuff. And now Christians are like, well, is he a Christian? Well, we should have waited in the first place.
Right.
And he shouldn't have had a platform, not in the Christian space. He shouldn't have had a platform until there was fruit that was there enough to know that this is true conversion, or that he is really true. He's being real about what he says he believes.
Yep.
Right?
Right.
There was a couple other things I want to mention, but I don't want this to be too long. And again, just to reiterate, this is not about whether or not Kanye is saved. Everybody's on a spiritual journey. I believe Kanye has his own spiritual journey.
Right.
But I think that's why you don't platform.
Right.
I think that's why we shouldn't be quick to lay hands and to say, yes, now God can, no.
Right.
Because he is on his journey.
Yeah.
We don't know where that journey is taking him.
Right.
We don't know what God is doing in his life. We know that Kanye is no different than nobody else and anybody else in terms of we all have these demons that we need to overcome, or that need to be these giants that need to be slayed in our own life. And so it's sad to see him wrestle with all of these things. But again, if he has a relationship with the living God, the Spirit of God is working within him. The best thing we can do is pray for him. The best thing we can do is not reward him with the very thing that the enemy's using to destroy him.
That's good.
You understand? Which is influence.
Yes.
So we reward him with what the enemy is actually using to destroy Kanye West. Kanye West needs to be in a loving community with other believers who are going to walk with him, not judge him, care for him, give him truth, but really be with him. You know what I mean? And so anyway, my thought is that Christians, we're in part to blame. This is we're the ones who endorsed Kanye West, and we've empowered this mindset that he can just say and speak on behalf of Christians because we gave him platform.
Right.
We went to his concerts. We pushed his album. We celebrated his conversion. And I'm not saying, again, I'm just saying, wait.
Yes.
Hey, we can get things wrong all the time. But the way we went at it is, man, God saved Kanye. And now we need to utilize that influence. But that's in part what I think he's pushing back against is he feels used.
Right.
You know what I mean? Which is a whole nother conversation.
Right.
But I'm saying that to say, as Christians, we just need to be careful about how we lay hands on people. Not just because we don't know if they're saved or not, but because I don't think God is saving people just to use these things that we value.
Right.
God is saving people because he loves them.
Yes.
And he wants to be in fellowship with them.
Yes.
And sometimes that means giving up the influence that they have. Sometimes that means letting go of that.
Yeah.
That God is not going to use that influence.
Right.
He doesn't want the influence. He never wanted the influence. He's going to use the individual however he sees fit.
Right.
And sometimes that means walking away from it. Right. And so anyway, that's all I got. Any final thoughts that you have?
I think that was really good.
Yeah. So
I can't wait for part 2.
Yeah, for part 2. Yeah, maybe we'll talk a little bit about some of the things that he said, and try to kind of look a little bit deeper, because I do think that people are looking at it in the surface, in a surface way. But anyway, we'll entertain it. Thank you so much for tuning into the Church Dropout podcast. Another one in the books. Like I said, please rate, subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast at, and we'll see you on the next one. Yeah, leave a comment.
Let us know how you feel.
Yep, absolutely. We'd love to hear your thoughts. God bless.
Good night.